Okay, I will call this meeting to order. Agenda's in front of us. Any changes to the agenda? Councillor Ferguson,
Motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
motion to adopt the agenda as presented. Any discussion? All the question, those in favor? It's carried. Additionally, I'd like to take a moment to do a land acknowledgement. And so in the spirit of respect, authenticity, and reconciliation, the town of Slave Lake honors and acknowledges that we are situated on the traditional lands of Sawridge First Nation within Treaty 8 territory, home to Indigenous, Métis, and Inuit people who have occupied these lands since time immemorial. We have two public hearings tonight, so we will start with bylaw number 13. And so I will declare this public hearing open and state that this hearing is held pursuant to sections 230, 606, and 692 of the MGA 2000 as amended. The purpose of bylaw number 13, 2022 is to amend section 3 of the land use bylaw number 22, 2007 by amending the definition for livestock and adding a new definition for low intensity farming operation, i.e. a hobby farm. The amending bylaw also adds agricultural operation and low intensity farming operation as a discretionary use to the urban expansion district.
Mayor Warman, just for notes for the minutes, I'll be removing myself for this discussion. So please make notes in the minutes.
Okay. The notice of this hearing was given in writing to the applicant and assessed landowners, as well as planning and development officer. The notice of this hearing was advertised on the town's website from October 5th to November 15th. Presentations are to be brief and to the point. The order of the hearing and presentations will be planning and development, followed by those in favor of the bylaw, those opposed, and any person deemed to be affected who wishes to be heard. Anyone giving presentations, please state your name and address when you come up forward to speak. With that, I will declare the public hearing open and we will start with planning and development.
Report is for council. Thank you. To hold the required public hearing and give consideration to second and third reading for bylaw number 13, 2022. The applicant and landowner are Mark Boissonneau. The proposal is to amend sections 3 and 113 of the land use bylaw by adding agricultural operation and low intensity farming operation as discretionary uses. In accordance with the MGA, bylaw 13 must receive first reading and a public hearing must be held prior to passing a resolution. First reading was received on October 4th. The Municipal Planning Commission reviewed this application at its November 7th, 2022 meeting and have indicated their support for the bylaw. Bylaw 13 was also 2022, was also advertised on the town's webpage and social media platforms for a period of 5 weeks. To date, no verbal or written comments have been received. Mr. Boissonneau recently purchased part of the Northeast 2572-6 west of the 5. Would like to be able to grow crops on some of that land and in the future operate a hobby farm as well. The subject lands are in the UE Urban Expansion District and currently the appropriate uses are not listed in the district to allow him to grow crops or operate a hobby farm. The land use bylaw currently has a definition for agricultural operation, which I've listed there. It means an agricultural activity conducted on agricultural land for gain or reward, or in the hope of expectation of gain or reward, and includes cultivation of land, production of agricultural field crops. And there's a few more defined there. This definition exists within the land use bylaw. However, it's not listed as a use in the UE district, and such the proposed amending bylaw would add the agricultural operation as a discretionary use. The land use bylaw also contains a definition for livestock. We're recommending an update to that definition and replacing it with the following. Livestock means horses, cattle, buffalo, bison, swine, donkeys, mules, oxen, goats, sheep, llamas, alpacas, fur-bearing animals raised in captivity for pelts, and other animals and wildlife, birds and poultry. The land use bylaw does not have a definition for hobby farm, so we've created one. Low intensity farming operation means the operation of a farm, i.e. hobby farm, where the total number of livestock animals, i.e. horses, cattle, buffaloes, bison, swine, donkeys, mules, oxen, sheep, goats, llamas, alpacas, fur-bearing animals, and other animals and wildlife does not exceed 6 at any given time, and the total number of poultry and birds does not exceed 30 at any given time. This use does not include a detached dwelling, however, may include other accessory buildings and structures necessary to operate the hobby farm, i.e. pens, corrals, barns, sheds, etc. Only 2 accessory buildings shall be permitted, and each building shall not exceed a floor area of 93 square meters. Low-intensity farming operations are considered temporary, and as such, their approval shall be limited to a maximum of 5 years. Again, the planning department is recommending low-intensity farming operation be added as a discretionary use. The applicant has reviewed the draft bylaw prior to first reading and has indicated he was happy with the definitions and regulations being proposed. Saying the application was advertised as I had indicated. And that's it for now. Any questions?
Questions from council? Councillor Adams.
Just a couple on the terminology, as far as putting it in under that land use bylaw, or by putting in the farming one, are we exempting the section 5 at all by having a different name on it? Since we're calling it low intensity farming?
I'm not,
Like, are they still going to be susceptible to the Agriculture Act under that or not?
the Agricultural Act.
Practices Act? Yeah, as in
but-
5A.
That. As in 5A.
I believe it was 5A. Sorry, I lost my notes on my sheet.
5A of the land use bylaw or 5A of the Agriculture Act?
5A in the land use bylaw.
5A. I don't know what you're referring to. I'm sorry. I'm not making that's. not-
Urban expansion definition.
The definition,
Discretionary uses, and then under that one in 5A, we said, it says where a development permit is approved for use agricultural
that
operation.
is all part of that definition.
So that will encompass
That
farming?
encompasses the 5-year time limit. So basically what that means is if somebody applies for that use, the development permit would be issued with a 5-year time frame on it, and they could reapply after the 5-year expiry. Is that what you're asking?
I'm not sure what you're asking either, so.
No. What, I just want to make sure that by us, I guess it's the nomenclature of it all. Are we, by us calling it low intensity farming instead of low intensity agriculture, are we exempting from the?
Oh, okay, I'm not
Agriculture.
calling it, there's 2 definitions that
Okay,
for 2 different things that would be happening. So the agricultural operation would deal with the cultivation of land and the growing of crops.
okay,
The low intensity farming operation would deal with the hobby farm. So if he wanted to do both things on the property, he would apply for both
both
uses. That's right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Randall.
So Lori, it's a temporary use, but we're doing 5 years. So then the applicant has to reapply and do this all over again in 5 years, or is it an automatic renewal?
No, it's not an automatic renewal. And the point behind that is that this piece of property is slated in the South Expansion Area Structure Plan for highway, commercial and high density and residential developments and subdivisions. So the intent of the 5 years is to give the Municipal Planning Commission the opportunity to reconsider the use after that 5-year term in light of potential future developments in the area. So if there's an impending development or something that's going on, they can look at that and say, well, in light of the fact that we know this development is coming forward, we don't want that land to be used for agricultural purposes after that 5-year term. So that's the intent of that time limited. And they may say there's nothing, in which case the next 5 years, it's fine for that to continue,
Okay.
right? So that could go on for
And so
15, 20, 25 years, depending on, you know, what kind of development potential there is.
Okay, that's what I was wondering.
adjacent
So if
to.
it goes on for 25 years, is it really temporary?
No, but it's reevaluated every 5 years. So the MPC has the opportunity to reconsider it depending on what's going on with
In the
development
community.
within the community.
Okay,
Yeah.
so,
Okay.
so expanding on that though, so what happens, you know, they do this for 5 years and NPC says, sorry, this doesn't fit anymore. Any investment that they made in there is just gone. They have to reconvert or what? Like, it's like a stop order. They stop doing what they're doing.
No, it's not a stop order. Basically, when the development permit expires, if the MPC and they reapply and the MPC says no, then the use cannot continue. So they would not be able to continue on with the agricultural operation.
Okay, so they have to be cognizant of how much they invest because they might not be able to continue.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, the definition limits the investment in terms of buildings and structures they can put on as well, right? Like it's, we're saying no single detached buildings, like a home can't go in. And we're saying 2 accessory structures or barns or that kind of thing in association with the use. So that they can, they can build some corrals and they could put up smaller barn or outbuilding to house animals or feed or whatever they have. But that would be the limit on it right now.
Okay. And so we get the one definition that's agricultural operation, and we get the other definition that's around the hobby farm piece.
Yep.
It deals more with livestock pieces. But so under agriculture operation, it's cultivation of land, agriculture, feed crops, that all makes sense. But then it says production of eggs and milk and honey. So theoretically, then you
could
Yep.
have an apiary.
you can produce it, but you can't have the livestock there without applying for the hobby farm or what? I don't understand that.
You cannot have the hobby, you could, yeah, I'm not sure, but I never saw the eggs and milk, to be honest with you. Until just now. But definitely the cattle,
Because
any of the animals.
we used to live
would
on a
be
farm
limited.
and it's been a long time, but it's pretty tough to get milk without the cow. So I just don't understand how that would work.
Yeah, and we may need to go back and amend the agricultural operation to remove the production of eggs and milk. Because it's already captured underneath the hobby farm.
Because then you might as well have,
Or we can do that now. Actually, you have the ability to amend that definition to remove that right now.
okay, well, we wouldn't do it now. We do it when we do the report.
Yes, sorry.
Okay.
My apologies. Yeah, I didn't catch that. Good catch.
Councillor Adams.
So by us changing this piece, we're then opening up this possibility like apiaries or whatever else we were saying at any urban expansion, they could apply.
That's right.
So
As
even
soon as you have the
Parks in
use.
town and
Yeah, there are, a few other urban expansion lots. Most of them exist on the south side of the highway. So yes, this would, by adding these to the UE, other landowners with parcels that are UE could apply for these uses. That's right.
because we have lots.
And they are listed as discretionary.
Okay,
Okay. Just looking at the location map. Any other questions? Last one for you, Lori. I actually got a fair bit of feedback from different residents about this one, but I don't see anyone here tonight that would likely be speaking about it. And so I am curious there if adjacent landowners get notified.
No, when it's a regulatory amendment, it's the regulations of the bylaws itself. So it's not site specific. Right? When it's a rezoning, there's a specific parcel of land that's being redesignated. So adjacent property owners are notified, but not on a regulatory change. So technically, you need to notify the whole municipality, everybody.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions? As I see none. Oh, sorry. Give her.
just on process, because your question kind of made me think of it. So, but then once this is changed, the application goes to the NPC to get approved for discretionary use. It gets approved, then notification gets sent out to adjacent landowners.
That's right.
So they will be notified. Then you can appeal to the
They're not
SDB.
notified individually of a land use amendment when it's regulatory,
Right.
but they would be notified of an approval of the NPC. That's right.
Okay. Any other questions? Going once, going twice? At this point, ask anyone in favor of the bylaw to come forward and speak. Anybody in favor? Feel free. If you guys just want to come up here. Just introduce.
If anyone's got questions, it's not like about it.
Sure. If you just want to introduce yourself there for those, because it's all
Okay.
recorded here, so.
Yeah, I'm Mark Westeno, I'm the landowner,
Okay,
and if anyone has any questions, basically, I'm just bought the land with the intent to eventually develop the commercial on highway frontage, but in the meantime, I just want to have fun and plant a few acres of crops and just hang out. Just, yeah,
okay,
just have a good time out there,
okay,
quad and whatever,
okay.
yeah.
Questions from council? Councillor Gramlich.
So that 5 years you're comfortable with? That doesn't hinder you or?
No, but that's all I'm offered right now and with, I'm just want to invest a lot, you know, if I build some buildings, I'm gonna put them on skids. And I think that once I know what I'm doing, more so then I'll, you know, I'll apply for permits for whatever and go through the hoops then.
So it doesn't really affect you that negatively? You can make it work?
Yeah, just because I need something right now because I got letters saying, you know, basically I can't do nothing. I just want to, you know, plant, you know, 10 acres of hay and possibly get a couple cows, but
Okay,
so.
Councillor Adams.
Just sorry, not towards you, but more towards you. It's the 5 years, that's a maximum. The MPC can approve a month, a year, 2 years, 3 years. It's up to them, right?
They could, but the definition, I don't think they would stray outside of what the definition is saying.
Well, it
The
says-
definition saying 5 years, I can't see them saying, well, they could, but I can't see them saying we're only going to give you one.
Because I thought it was maximum 5 years. That's how it was worded. Am I wrong?
Well, I think
Yeah.
saying the market's a maximum of 5 years.
Okay.
Like. in
The
general.
I just didn't want any
Proof.
confusion there.
I mean, I'd like to
Make
go
sure you're
invest in
asking
it
for
and then
5
we
years.
can rezone it. If it ever wants to go back, you know, to another thing, but I was under understand that's all that was available to me, so I just.
Yeah, that's correct. We don't have any agricultural, you're right. We
Yes,
don't
that's
have
all
any
that was available,
agricultural
so of
districts.
course, you know, I'd like to just say we're good and not worry about it for the next 20 years and. But at some point, I'm gonna need to rezone it once I do something more with it.
Right.
Really, anything I do, whether I do highway, sell it off or. Do anything out there, I'm gonna have to apply for it.
Okay.
So this just kind of lets me do what I'm doing for a little while and.
Okay. Other questions from council? Okay, I'll make a comment while you're here. Sorry, Mark, for my own benefit there, whatever else I'm supposed to get you to state your address too. Sorry for record. Your address.
Where I live?
Yeah.
2211 Pioneer Drive Southwest.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, that's my fault for not asking earlier. One thing I was going to say though is, you know, not focusing on this land specific, but focusing on the idea. And so the thing is here's the climate of Slave Lake. Things are busy. And, you know, we're needing more housing, definitely need more industrial land. And, you know, we're probably poised for the best opportunity for expansion that we've had in a long time. And so the question comes as we go through here is that, you know, I'm nervous about locking up agricultural land that, you know, has already been identified as expansion potential.
Mhm.
That being said, I do like the idea that it's a discretionary use and there's a time limit on it. And so the intention is right now, the intention right now is that you're going to do some haying right now and you'd have minimal livestock.
Yeah, if any, I'm not really ready for it, but
Okay,
at some point. I'd be more than happy to sell that front piece at some time, but I don't think we're quite there yet and. I'm just,
yeah, highway commercial, there's still some other opportunities that exist in.
yeah,
the
well,
community.
that's when starts selling, then maybe I'd think about it, but.
Yeah, and realistically, it doesn't work with being so close to creek. It doesn't work for industrial, but looking at the whole piece as a,
Mhm. There's not a ton there. That's.
looking at the whole piece, because there are other areas that are zoned for urban expansion there that I'm nervous about tying up land. However, I'm not.
Some of it's floodplain, a whole bunch of it's floodplain, so there's not a lot of, you know, so it kind of suits what I'm doing, you know, where. I think.
Fair enough. Okay, there's no other questions. Thanks. At this point, I ask anybody else in favor to come forward and speak. Anybody else in favor? Going once, going twice. Anybody opposed that wishes to come forward and speak? Anybody opposed? Anybody deemed to be affected that wishes to come forward and speak? Going once, going twice. As I see no one else, I will declare this public hearing closed and we'll move into the next one. So I will declare this public hearing open and state this hearing is held pursuant to sections 230, 606, and 692 of the MGA 2000 as amended. The purpose of bylaw 14/2022 is to amend section 53D projecting signs by removing subsection 8, which reads as follows. If there's a projecting sign to business, no other fascia awning or canopy sign will be permitted. The notice of this hearing was given in writing to the applicant and assessed landowners, and as well as the planning and development officer. The notice of this hearing was advertised on the town website from October 5th to November 15th of this year. Presentations are to be brief and to the point. The order for the hearing of presentations will be planning and development, followed by those in favor, those opposed, and any person deemed to be affected who wishes to be heard. I will start with planning and development.
Okay, your worship and members of council, the purpose of this report is for council to hold a required public hearing and consider second and third reading for bylaw number 14, 2022. The applicant is the town of Slave Lake, and the proposal is to amend section 53D of the land use bylaw by removing the limitations around projecting signs, fascia signs, and canopy signs being allowed together on the same business frontage. Bylaw number 14 received first reading on October 4th, 2022. The MPC reviewed this application at its November 7th, 2022 meeting and have indicated their support for the bylaw. The bylaw was also advertised on the town's webpage and so for a period of 5 weeks. And we have received one letter in support of the proposed amendment, which is attached to the report. The owners of the fix have requested the ability to place a projecting sign on their business frontage. Currently, the land use bylaw limits the ability to have a projecting sign if there is already an existing fascia and canopy or awning sign. Section 53D reads, if there is a projecting sign at a business, no other fascia, awning, or canopy sign will be permitted. Amending bylaw 14 would remove subsection 8 entirely, thereby no longer limiting the ability to have a fascia sign, projecting sign, and awning and canopy sign together on the same business frontage. Any questions?
Questions from council? None. Holy smokers. So projecting sign just being something like, you know, the sideways facing sandwich board type thing, right? So
It sticks out from the wall of the building. So when you're walking down the sidewalk or even driving down the street, it would stick out
Has
this
to
way
be
so
right
you
in
can
front of the
see it.
building to see it.
That's right.
Yeah, that's kind of.
Yeah.
Just wanted to verify that's what we're talking about. Okay. At this point, then I would ask anyone in favor of the bylaw to come forward and speak. Anyone in favor? Anyone opposed? Anyone deemed to be affected? As the only other people in this room are staff and the Lakeside leader, I would assume that we have covered everyone, and I will declare this public hearing closed. So with that, we will jump into minutes of our previous meetings. On page 3 in our package, we have some from November 1st. Any issues, any concerns? Thought provoking ideas, Councillor Hughes.
I move to accept the meeting minutes from November 1st, 2022.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Next, we have the minutes from Committee of the Whole on November 8th in our package on page 8. And you just click on a button, they just come right up. Look at that, eh? Any questions, concerns? Councillor Randall.
I move that we accept the minutes of November 8th as presented.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Question periods, any quick questions for CAO, comments, concerns? I see none. We will jump into reports and new business. And so we start with bylaw number 13.
Can you please make note for the minutes that I'll be removing myself again?
Yeah. Starting to wonder why you came tonight, but that's okay. Okay, Councillor Ferguson has stepped out. Lori, any new information?
One thing I did misspeak. I said that we could amend the definition for agricultural operation, but we can't because it's not part of this bylaw. So administration will need to come back with an amending bylaw to remove the production of eggs and milk so that it's because it's already captured in the hobby farm.
Okay,
Okay.
so do we have to do a public hearing and everything again?
Yeah, but not for this. This will allow him to move forward. I'll come back with that cleanup bylaw by itself or with something else.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thoughts, comments? Ideas, motions, Councillor Hughes.
Yeah, I'm in support of this. When it came to MPC, a few people there had questions, but Lori was able to answer everything that we needed. I think the 5-year time limit on it is fine. And I think it's just a resident who wants to obviously get into some hobby farming, and I see no issue with that on my end.
Councillor Randall.
I am not in favor of this one. I don't think a farm should be in town just because it's not, Lori triggered something when she said that it's not site specific. So it's going to affect the whole town. So I just took a really quick look at the town map and zoning, and it's going to affect a few other spots too that I'm not cool with. So
Okay, Councillor Hughes wants to play again.
If I may ask, what other spots do you think it will affect?
there's two in the southwest, couple in the southeast,
For the UE?
Yeah.
Okay.
and the ones in the southwest are quite large too.
Okay. Other thoughts and comments? Councillor Gramlich?
I have a question for Councillor Brandel. Like, when you say affect it, what are you thinking the outcome could be? You're thinking people will want
Well-
to pop up like cows in their backyard? Well, no, I'm being serious.
Councillor Brandel.
Well, honestly, like a few years ago, we had the whole chicken bylaw and I don't want that to come back up again. Because I just don't believe that these types of things belong in town. My thought back then, for the chickens were they should be allowed in the bigger lots such as Gloryland. Just because they've got bigger lots and bigger separation between the residents, not right in town. And for this, I think it's the same way. I realize his is out in, like, there is
Yeah.
a separation,
Yeah.
but for the other ones that on the UE, there isn't. So because it's not site specific, that's my issue.
But then we could just, it's
Councillor Gramlich.
discretionary where we could say that again, right? We could not approve Joe Blow in the southwest or whatever. Steve wants to play the game.
We won't be
And I
able
guess that
to.
it's discretionary and it will come
As
back
NPC
in
would have
time, but
Okay,
that's my vote.
Councillor Adams.
That's much my comment as well, as I'm reluctant to let this go through as well, mainly because I don't believe farming belongs inside of a town's boundaries, especially when our boundaries are so tight. But that being said, we do have an MPC that is meant to look at these discretionary issues and ensure they're only going in the places that they aren't going to affect people. So like putting something like this in the old park in the southwest on 14th Ave, which is urban expansion, you know, hopefully MPC wouldn't allow an agricultural operation to go in there where you've got bees, eggs, chicken coops, the whole 9 yards, right? That'd be interesting to see. But yeah, so I kind of think that our MPC would be, we got to rely on them to do their job.
There's some really smart people on that committee.
But they change it every year. Other questions, comments? Seeing none. We'll be looking for a motion. Councillor Hughes.
Oh, sorry, I wasn't ready. I will move that bylaw number 13-2022 to amend sections 3 and 113 of the land use bylaw number 2022-2007 receive second reading.
Any further discussion? I have a comment. Zone away in. Yeah, you know, my thought is, I agree with a lot of what Councillor Brandel is saying. In the sense that, you know what, I don't want to stagnate land. And theoretically, that's what could happen. We could literally all of a sudden within 2 months here, basically all the land, because urban expansion is not like this vast array of chunks of land all the way around us that we have hundreds to choose from. We literally have a handful that are designed for the town to expand. And so when your town needs to expand, that's typically the land that you unlock. And so if we had a vast amount of hobby farmers come forward here, whatever else, we could lock up all that land. That being said, on the other side, most of the guy that usually says, you know, I want to make things happen and I don't want to live in a box and, you know, and I like to find a way to say yes if it makes sense. What's unique about this chunk of land is that because it's so close to the creek, it has limited ability to do things. And, you know, realistically, commercial is where it would make the most sense. You're not going to put industrial there right on the creek. There's an opportunity for additional residential, but realistically, it's going to make more sense to use some of the areas closer to town right now. And additionally, we have some stuff that is west of town that we could use as well. And so I am comforted by the fact that the MPC will be able to look at it at a site by site comparison and make those decisions, hopefully, and they make sense. Additionally, I don't love that landowners were not informed, but I understand the process and why they're not, and that it will come in the future. However, they will likely feel like we didn't give them the chance to do it, and we'll hear all about it, but that's how the process works.
Can't wait for that. MPC.
And on that note, yeah, I think I can live with it. I'm willing to explore. Motion is on the floor. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? That is carried. So sorry, to be clear, for you're opposed, okay.
Third reading.
Yeah, third reading is still required. Councillor Gramack.
To move that bylaw number 13-2022 to amend sections 3 and 113 of the land use bylaw number 22-2007 receives third reading.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? Are you sure?
Sure.
Okay, that is carried. If we want to let Councillor Ferguson know.
Excuse me.
So we'll jump into bylaw number 14. Lori, anything new to add to that?
Nothing other than we recommend the bylaw get second and third reading.
After the robust discussion from council during that public hearing, are there any comments, Councillor Adams?
Just one.
Are you sure?
I'm trying to remember back, and when this was done, I'm thinking it was because of the M&M sign that was down there when there was a convenience store. That was a massive sign that kind of went out over the street. Is there a limitation on these?
Yeah, the land use bylaw sets up regulations for projecting signs, limiting size and limiting the, they're putting a height restriction so that they're not too low or extending too far out from the outside, from the building. So there are some regulations around that.
Perfect,
Yeah.
thank you.
Councillor Hughes, before you go, I have a clarification question. Where was the massive M&M sign on convenience stores? Like that's.
Next to the theater.
How long ago was that?
I remember when Slurpees came into town. That was awesome.
I'm starting to wonder if you were there when Slurpees were invented. Okay, so there's a limit to what is there.
Yeah.
To
Okay.
the size of the projecting. sign.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
The size and how high it has to be off the ground. So it can't be walked into by a pedestrian or something.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was just gonna say that I am also in favor of this change. This actually came from a tourism meeting where some businesses were talking about signage and just being able to expand on their business needs for advertising. I do think it would be a nice fit. It would be nice to see some good size projecting signs downtown for the pedestrian traffic and also from a tourism perspective too. So I am in favor of it.
Okay. Councillor Ward.
I'll move that bylaw 14-2022 to amend section 53D of land use bylaw number 22-2007 receives second reading.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Councillor Brandel.
I move that bylaw 14-2022 to amend section 53D of the land use bylaw 22-2007 receives third reading.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Okay, jumping into page 34 of our package, enforcement options for recurring snow removal and grass cutting complaints.
So good evening, Mayor and Council. Last April, Council requested a report be brought forward to look at ways administration can make changes to make it easier for administration to complete some enforcement tasks. Based on our recollection, that's primarily focusing around snow removal and grass cutting issues. In May, or I should say, administration did seek legal opinion on this. And in May, a report was brought back to council, making some recommendations for some amendments to the community standards bylaw, as well as the snow removal bylaw. Since that point in time, that report was, or matter was tabled, we're waiting for policy to be developed. Apologize that it's taken a while to get this before council with changes in administration. We've now looked at it and we looked at where the policy would fit the best, and it makes the most sense that this would form part of the Enforcement Services Standard Operating Procedures, which are technically approved by the Chief Administrative Officer. The CAO, we have drafted the SOPs for those particular matters, and the CAO has signed those off. So we're presenting those for information, for council's information tonight. Sidewalk snow removal standard operating procedure would normally see snow a 24-hour time period after snow has finished falling is when the residents would, or the adjacent property owners would need to remove their snow. In this particular case, after enforcement officers become aware of snow that's on sidewalks that's non-compliant, they would normally give a 48-hour notice on top of that to have the snow cleared, except in emergent situations. And an emergent situation can factor into pedestrian traffic flows and so on. One example that's written in the policy is if it's on a corridor where there's a lot of traffic going to and from a school, specifically to classify that as an emergent situation. In emergent situations, then the town can take immediate action. And the only thing is that because no notice has been given to the landowner, recommendation from our legal counsel is that no penalty can be imposed on the adjacent landowner, meaning that they're still responsible for the cost of the snow removal, but no fine could be issued for over and above the cost of that, only in the emergent situations. As well as if it's an ongoing situation of an emergent nature for snow, that one notice could be issued for the remainder of the season or the term, depending on the circumstances. In terms of grass cutting, the process is a little bit different. There's with less urgency for public safety, but we've normalized a shorter time frame in terms of trying to seek compliance. Normally, we have up to 4 days, but depending upon circumstances, again, our peace officers can also give more time if needed. But the intent is to try to reduce the time down to try to deal with these complaints in a more timely manner. So with that, our recommendation is that the amendments to those two bylaws move forward, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, questions, concerns from council? Councilor Ferguson.
So comment here. So individuals could be charged for potentially for the cleanup of snow, but there'd be no penalty applied.
Only in the emergent situation scenario. So that means the town could go in, clear the sidewalk, but because no notice was given, they wouldn't necessarily be applied a penalty on top of that. It's not really our practice anyways to do that. We just want to avoid the scenario where we're clearing the snow for the resident or the property owner on a regular basis. We want to make sure that the property owner still owns that responsibility.
Okay. Alrighty, thank you.
Other questions, comments? So I was one that kind of pushed to bring this forward. So the frustration comes from the fact that we go through this process where landowner doesn't cut their grass or shovel the sidewalk, give them notice, then we go to issue a fine, we have to give them more time, then they don't do it, we go to court, and we spend a bunch of money and we go to court. And then we have to try and enforce again, and then we might be able to hire a contractor and we might be able to get them to go fix it. Unless, of course, the season changes and then we just start all over the next year. Yeah. It's literally the most frustrating, pointless process. Probably not the most, but it is very frustrating. And so the idea is here in this circumstance, so we give you guys additional powers to act on it more quickly. So I determine, hey, it's an emergent thing, and I give them 48 hours notice, or I don't give them 48 hours notice.
They do not need to have 48 hours notice on the emergent
notice. I'm
Right.
like, this is an issue. We go deal with it.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not exactly the intent I was looking for. The intent was to be able to go and do something about it, but then the fact is that we go do it, we didn't give them any notice. That is going to be the issue.
So we've also have shortened the timelines for obtaining compliance instead of giving notices, waiting 72 hours or a week to obtain compliance. If we give notice, then we can also issue the penalties on top of the cost of getting the snow removal cleared. The timelines have been shortened up as tight as that is recommended. And so we're trying to make sure that the timelines are tightened. Still trying to work within the confines of the Municipal Government Act as well.
Okay, so I like that it's a tool that can be used, but it's also a tool that can be abused.
Right.
And so that's makes me a little bit nervous. Right? So
Yeah.
if we've got this this non-compliant landowner that consistently is the habitual exercise of effort and time, we can basically move forward with something else. The other issue would be is if we're overzealous on how we use this on the other side, it's going to look like we've got a heavy hand in how we deal with things.
Correct. And I think that probably fits with any type of enforcement under existing snow removal bylaw. Peace officers could be issuing tickets to anybody who doesn't have their snow removed within 24 hours if you hold it to the letter of the law. We don't enforce to the letter of law. We try to get compliance first, right? And I think that's the primary objective.
Councillor Hughes.
In this one part I was just getting though, it's saying when there's an emergent situation of an ongoing nature, for example, non-compliance after every snowfall. So by your own definition, you're not going to be seeking that out to one person. This is a constant problem, constant situation, correct?
That's correct. And in those circumstances, under the emergency situation, we can't, where it's ongoing, kind of like an ongoing emergency situation, we can give notice for once for the entire year and say from here on for the rest of the season, you need to clean your sidewalk. And if you don't, we can still enforce a penalty on top of that one because we gave a notice.
Okay. Councillor Ferguson.
Can I just ask for some clarity on one of the sections here written into the bylaw?
Sure.
On page 60, section 3.17.
Interesting. When you do this digitally, you can't see the page numbers. I know, I'm scrolling down to it. I'm just saying that there's no number on there. Anyway. Okay.
So are you there, Gary?
Yes.
So I guess the question is, so it talks about how the town can still have the snow and or ice removed despite.
Sorry, you said 3.17?
Yes.
Okay.
Despite whether any contravention of the bylaw has happened. So in a case like that, it's 18 hours, it's deemed maybe an emergency situation and the town goes in and clears the snow. Would the property owner still be responsible for the costs of clearing that snow potentially?
They could be potentially, yes.
Okay.
Right.
Councillor Graham.
I just want to comment on what I think Gary's getting to here is like, he's not looking for it snows and we're gonna go ding 40 residents and 50 businesses. It's gonna be those 2 or 3 bad apples and they're gonna get a warning. And now we have something put in place where they could follow through. They've already received their warning. Now we can go in there and clean up their snow and make it safer and easier to get around for everyone else in Slave Lake. And they could, target those 2 or 3 bad apples every season. And it's gonna make all of our lives easier and admin's life easier, I think. Am I correct, Gary?
Correct. The intent is to shorten down those timeframes for those difficult, challenging situations where it snows and the sidewalk's covered in snow repeatedly throughout the year. Notices go out. Eventually the snow gets cleared and then it snows again. And then it takes weeks to get the snow cleared again. That's the intent, is to try to create a framework so that we can be able to deal with those.
Okay.
And I assume this was mimicked after other municipalities that have similar. Yeah,
Correct.
this is not a.
This is not new.
Okay. Other questions, comments? I'll just say in closing, I'd rather provide us with the tools than not. And hopefully we just use them correctly. So I'm excited to see if this helps. Any other questions, comments? Councillor Adams.
I move that the community standards bylaw 072022 receives first reading.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Counselor Gramlich.
Move the community standards bylaw number 07-2022 receive second reading.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? It's carried. Counselor Hughes.
Move that council give unanimous consent for third reading of community standards bylaw 07-2022.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? It's carried. Counselor Brandel.
Move that the community standards bylaw 2022 receives the, what are we on, third reading?
Third reading.
Yeah.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That's carried. Counselor Ferguson.
Move that the snow removal bylaw number 08-2022 receives first reading.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? It's carried. Counselor Adams.
Move that snow removal bylaw 082022 receive second reading.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? It's carried. Counselor Gramlich.
I didn't put my hand up that time. Move that council give unanimous consent to have third reading of the snow removal bylaw number 08-2022.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That's carried. Counselor Ward.
Move that the snow removal bylaw 08-2022 receives third reading.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Wow, governance in action. Hey. Okay, let's move on to Alberta North Central Alliance. So at our last meeting there, we had some discussion around the governance protocols. And because that we have had one First Nation remove themselves, so it's 5 municipalities and 4 First Nations at present. We want to change the way the quorum is set up to make sure that we have quorum on a more ongoing basis. And so each municipality was to bring back these governance protocols for ratification from their councils. So as you can see there in there where the changes have been made, I think it's pretty straightforward. Any thoughts, comments? If not, I would make a motion that council approves the new governance protocols for the Alberta North Central Alliance. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Correspondence. So over the last number of weeks, a group has been forming an advocacy group, encompasses a number of municipalities, as well as a number of members of industry. Alberta Forest Products Association has been a big champion of this, and both Deputy Mayor Brandel and I have attended some of these meetings, but a large part of the champions are coming out of Grand Prairie as well. And where it stems from is the fact that there's an ongoing frustration from industry in a number of different pieces. So it's not just something that's forest, it's agriculture, it's oil. It's about getting access to rail and to cars. And so the frustration comes that essentially there's a bit of a monopoly that exists, especially in Northern Alberta. In Southern Alberta, it's a little less impactful because there's choices, whereas up in Northern Alberta, we don't. And so we have experienced these instances in our own backyard in the sense that mills and people that work in our community are basically temporarily laid off for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever is happening, because they just can't get transportation to get their supply out. That being said, it's very difficult as well for any other group to come in, and so we're at the mercy of whatever this rail company that is regulated by Transport Canada to basically provide supply. And so a lot of the times too, there's regulations built in that says how much supply should be available, and they continue to not meet those demands. And there's even circumstances where if you want to get access to rail, it's almost ransomed off there to the highest bidder, which kind of defeats the purpose of business having access to it. And so a number of municipalities have joined in here and having discussions, these other members of industry, and they're working on some advocacy strategies to basically get some more buy-in from the federal government to really look in this and change some stuff. So they want to hire the Canadian Strategy Group, which is a group there that deals specifically with advocacy and lobbying. Their intention is to send a group to Ottawa to have some discussions with the federal government. Right now, they have basically reached out to this CSG group there, the strategy group. They've worked on a budget there that they've planned out for $35,000 worth of work that they plan to do over the next 4 months. AFPA, Alberta Forest Products Association, stepped up and says, hey, we're going to contribute 15,000 of this, but we'd like to have some buy-in from the other groups there to come up with the other 20. And so the ask is can we go back to our municipalities and partners and have some discussions about would they participate and support this cause. Right now in the letter and the request, it's for $2,000 to $4,000 because right now it would depend on how many municipalities and how many partners sign up. Theoretically, if you get 20, it's $1,000. If you get 10, it's $2,000 and so on and so forth. There was definitely overwhelming support from all the people on the call. There's probably about 20 in the last one. So it's growing all the time that everyone was in support of, but needed to go back and have some conversations with their group to seek some support. So questions, comments? Councillor Adams.
A couple questions. First would be, have we ever done hired a lobby group before? Town of Slave Lake?
The town of Slave Lake, to my knowledge, while I've been on council, we have never hired a lobby group, no.
Okay.
So this would not be a town of Slave Lake hiring them. This would be a conglomerate here or whatever.
I
else would be led
understand
by
that, a
us.
group of them for 35,000, but even our issues that we want to bring forward to our provincial counterpart or premier and our MLAs and whatnot, we have not gone to the point where we've ever thought it was a value add to hire a lobby group.
We have looked at it and we've evaluated at previous budgets. We've met with different contractors, but we have not
Gone through with it.
we haven't signed a contract with anyone.
Okay. And then are we expecting to have a decision on this tonight, or is this something we should be taking back to budget to have the discussion?
Either or, it's the crest has come forward and it's for us to decide. The only catch would be is that I don't anticipate that our budget is going to be improved in the next week or two. And so it would be something that would be, this is something that they're hoping to act on sooner rather than later. Other questions, comments? As I see none. I would like to make a motion that council dedicate a maximum of $2,000 towards an advocacy strategy spearheaded by Alberta Forest Products Association. Is the lead. She's a liaison to Minnesota. Yeah, sorry. She's a liaison on behalf of the municipal partners, but it's AFPA that is going to do the contract. So a maximum of up to $2,000 towards an advocacy campaign spearheaded by Alberta Forest Products Association. Funded from future expenditure reserve. Councillor Adams. Sorry, any discussion? Councillor Adams.
Yeah, sorry, just one quick question then, and now I've kind of lost my train of thought on. Okay, are we gonna have the results of this or updates on this shared with us as well? So that we can communicate that out to our public?
Totally. Like theoretically, our own mills are getting involved in this, and so Brock from AFPA had let me know that they would be reaching out in the next 2 weeks, and AFPA is also coming up here as part of our State of Lake discussion here at the end of the month. But theoretically, it's when this group meets here on an ongoing basis, it's up to myself, who's sitting there right now, to make sure that I update council on what's happening.
Okay, thank you.
Motion on the floor, other discussion, Councillor Hughes.
Yeah, I think that I would be in favor of giving the $2,000 that you made the motion for. I do think, you know, obviously we are a forestry and oil field community. So if there's something we can be doing to really support them and their quest for federal support, I think we should be doing that. And while, you know, I don't want to be giving out dollars right now and we're pinching pennies, I do think it is an important thing that we should be backing and giving the town of Slave Lake support to.
Other questions, comments? Yeah, I would just echo your comments too, that I don't want it to be seen too, like, you know, I talk about how difficult budget is and that sort of thing moving forward. I think it's a low cost item, and the fact that this impacts literally hundreds of jobs in our region, our community, it's important to keep our community working and our economy moving forward. And realistically, somebody else is also championing and doing the work here for us. I think that I'm willing to play in that space for sure. Motion is on the floor. Any further discussion? Call question, those in favor? That is carried. Mayor's Corner. Honestly, I don't have anything. You guys got anything you want to add? I would encourage everyone, it's Métis Week. And so if you have time to come down tomorrow at 11 o'clock, we're doing a flag raising with Métis Nation at downtown. And oh, actually, you know what? Where are we doing it? Town Hall. Okay. Sorry, I'm used to doing it downtown. Additionally, yeah, budget survey. Councillor Hughes has helped me out. Reminder that people please continue to fill out the budget survey there. Council will be evaluating that at the end of the month at our next budget meeting. There's a town hall RCMP tomorrow night, 5 o'clock. If you're interested in coming down and have some questions for Council RCMP, please feel free to do so. It'll also be a Facebook Live event. And honestly, I think that is all I got. Councillor Adams.
Motion to adjourn.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That's carried.